Thank you for joining us for this week's PAVE Coffee Chat. Today's chat, Post-COVID-19 Preparation in the Retail Industry, will be presented by Kate Lee, Senior Associate Vice President at CallisonRTKL, and Mark Mappala, Design Therapist and Assistant Professor at Bellevue College. Kate has spent 13 years in the global retail studio at CallisonRTKL, where she has worked with many retail brands globally as a lead designer, producing a multitude of award-winning projects. She has been recognized as the 2016 PAVE Rising Star, as well as Design Retail's 2018 40 Under 40 and VMSD's 2014 Designer Dozen. Mark has spent 12 years in the professional design industry with expertise in almost all facets of commercial and residential interior design and architecture, including 8 years of college-level teaching and outreach in academia, netting him numerous awards for his involvement and professional design. He was also an educational advisor for the 2019 PAVE Global Shop Student Design Project, in which his students excelled in designing a pop-up concept for Brooks Brothers. At the conclusion of today's chat, we'll be hosting a brief Q&A. Please send in your questions using the Q&A button found at the bottom of your screen. Now I will turn it over to you, Kate and Mark.
Thanks, Nikki. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We really hope this can help you a little bit during this tough time. As we all know, we're having very unique time all together. So I really want to say special thanks to Mark for joining me and accepting my invitation for today's chat. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great, Kate. Thank you for having me. You are definitely right. We're facing unique situations every day. As we look forward to the future, that will definitely be affected with that. And thank you, Kate, for working with me on this discussion. And thanks to PAVE, and thanks to everyone who's joining us today.
Well, so we're gonna briefly talk about what retailers are doing and what design firms are doing, because we really want to spend more time on you guys as a student or recent graduate, how you can be prepared during this tough time. So, well, as you all know, many retailers are preparing, working really hard to figure out what will be next and what can be done. And also we, CallisonRTKL, we are also working closely with our client and the major retailers to see what we can do. The major thing I noticed is understanding consumers' mindset, because this is even before COVID-19. Consumers' mindset is really important for retail industry or retail environment, because you don't know, like things are changing every day these days, and we don't know if consumers are afraid to come to the store when it starts reopening, or are they willing to touch the product, or there are so many fears and safety issues to cover for retailers. And that's just the basic thing for retail industry, because that's what you do, as a retail designer or retailers or anyone in the retail industry. You have to always try to understand what consumers want and what they are expecting. So to me, it's not really different, but I think it's getting even heavier on that thoughts to understand what's going on and what we can provide to meet consumers' expectation. Because Mark, remember we were talking about this is not even in the retail industry, for healthcare, you have to understand what patient wants, what doctors and nurses need to move around or help the patient, or even travel industry you mentioned, Mark. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's the travel industry and maybe the hospitality and food industry are definitely beacons to understand where industries are going in terms of safety and protocol for that. And so it might be interesting to start looking at other sectors and how they are handling this, and retailers could follow suit as well too. You know, it's really interesting as things are changing so quickly that you know, there is quite a bit of fear and confusion out there. And also, how do we interact with people when we had to sort of stop that quickly? And when we're human beings, so it's kind of like a little difficult to engage when we aren't really supposed to do that often. And I can see that start changing the landscape of design. And we're definitely going to have to think about that in terms of how students are learning those protocols in the classroom and how they can sort of move into the workforce.
Exactly. You know, like you said, it's all about, you know, like what consumers going to think about, what they're going to expect, how they're going to feel safe or comfortable in the store. That actually brings to another topic that retailers are researching and trying to engage even more, because during this pandemic, you know, online shopping sales increase huge, you know, it's large portion. And even before COVID-19 period, you know, it's been always like, you know, online shopping and offline shopping, and consumer sometimes, you know, order online and come to the store, pick up in store, try on, or vice versa. So they're really looking to make sure the seamless online and offline system, because you really need to provide more open or visibility to the consumer, you know, because consumer wants to buy this, and then if it's not available online, doom, they're gonna leave you, because these days everything's fast, and the consumer needs the immediate purchase sometimes. So what I noticed is retailers are doing heavily on, you know, like keeping those, what do I say, like inventory system, so they can check all the time, and it can be filled between online and offline to provide more store services, because there are certain things you cannot provide to consumer only by online. Because like you said, Mark, we are human being. We love to have human interaction, and we love to go to the store and, you know, see the product, compare the colors, compare this product and that product, try on and share with your friends or families. So those are really key point right now to develop further for retailers. Anything you want to add, Mark?
Yeah, I think that hopefully that we can start incorporating some of those ideas into the school system, into the school projects potentially, and have students starting to think about that right away. We just don't know how long this is going to last, and making sure that state policies, you know, those change quite a bit. So, and it really depends on where you live, honestly. So we're gonna have to be flexible and prepared. And I think that flexibility that you're talking about in terms of online versus physical format, that's still going to have to be tied together in some way. And I think that we're going to really have to push students to think a little bit outside of the box. You know, we are already out of our comfort zone by engaging in this type of format already. And I know there's some challenges with that, but I do think that it's an opportunity to create some very innovative ways to engage that customer, to also merchandise, to also create a brand story as well too.
Yes, I totally agree with you, Mark. We can take this as an opportunity to evolve and be creative, and those flexible and open mindset for student will bring a lot of opportunity, you know, for as a designer, as a future designer, because as we mentioned, you know, things are changing so fast. And retail industry has been always like that. You know, we, even before COVID-19, we always had situations like small, large, things changed, and retail environment has been always up to date and always changing and evolving to follow those trends or even lead that trend.
Yep.
To meet clients, consumers' needs and expectation. So yes, it's really important to take this as a, you know, another opportunity and for, you know, the retail environment to grow and evolve. That actually brings to our next topic, you know, what designer firms are doing, you know, what designers are doing, what what design firms are doing, because temporarily, you know, I see many design firms are doing, you know, studying like space planning, even if you start from, you know, like before vaccine or after vaccine comes out, I mean, the safe one. So I see a lot of firms are studying that with their clients. And also, you know, when you go to the store these days, I know it's mostly just the essential stores, but you see all the acrylic panels and plexiglasses and those messages on the floor for social distancing, sanitizing station everywhere. I mean, those are, I think it's only temporary solution. As when design comes to the part, I think it will play even more important things, because I want to actually quote one of our client and good friends from Nike APLA team, Paco Navarro, once mentioned to us, hey, in the end, store has to be store. It shouldn't look like hospital, right? And I really agree and I concur that, because, you know, consumers come to the store to feel those store experience, those consumer experience or in-store service. So it shouldn't really look like hospital or something temporary things. So we thought we can maybe share a really short video clip that we've done before COVID, 1-2 years ago, working with Nike, closely with Nike and ABC Mart Japan and Korea, because that was the target consumer, as we call Muse. They were style connected people who are heavily involved in social media. And that's why we provided so many in-store service and experience. So maybe that will be helpful for us to kind of remind all of us how it was before. And we really want you to, while you're watching, we really want you to think about what could be relevant still now, or what could be changed or evolved. So we can show you a little video clip. Here you go. It's not playing. This is another thing during pandemic, you know, while using this thing, you know, we're having so much technical problem. Nikki, would you help me to play that video? It's not working. Thank you, Nikki.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Oh,
what do
you're
you guys
giving me
think? That was
memories.
2019, 2018,
I know.
not a while ago.
Wow, that all of that seems very, um, oh God, I mean, the memories of just shopping. I wish I had that. All of those moments seem amazing. Yeah.
Uh, I mean, the key part of this design was to have flexible kilo part for the furniture fixture, because ABC Mart is the largest, one of the largest wholesaler for this athletic sports brand in Japan and Korea and all over the Asia. So they have so many brands inside. So it has to be flexible. So each brand can come in and they use those kilo part to embellish their panel or their new product, highlighting their new product. As you saw, this we made center stage as the highlight, like kind of like window, not like traditional window setting. It's more like people can engage more, consumer can come and then see things. And then we call it backstage because the store name is ABC Mart Grand Stage. So we named it as center stage, highlight part, where you know, more, the new product or each brand can take over and then show the new product or new product launch or some event thing. And then there are backstage that has all those in-store service, such as, you know, fitting room or click and collect locker that you can order online, as you saw in the video, and then come to pick it up and then try on. And we even included those, you know, little photo booth to, you know, try on your new product, new purchase, and share it right there onto your Instagram or Facebook to brag, to show off your purchase. Those things were kind of key in-store service. I don't know, what do you think, Mark? Is it still relevant? Would people come and touch and engage with all these services?
You know, I'm not sure. I think that sometimes, I think there's opportunity to still design for the future in that capacity. I mean, we are going to go back to, in some capacity, to shopping in the way that we would like to. There might be some changes. I mean, if we do look at the travel industry when 9/11 happened, you know, that was quite a long time ago, and we're still dealing with a lot of these issues spatially and as an engagement as we fly still. And so we're just tweaking that a little bit more. I mean, it's just now with retailing, it's such a big part of just who we are as consumers, and we shop for everything now. And they're really, I think that people will still want that. I think consumers will still want that. And I think there's probably really good opportunities for you as a firm to kind of redefine that. And maybe not make it look like a hospital or feeling like medical and all of that stuff. So I think those are some challenges that you guys are probably dealing with within your design teams and your companies. I do have a question, Kate, about how are you dealing with engaging with students now with COVID, and how is the workplace different in your firms, and how are you seeing that change?
Well, you know, it's tough time for everyone, and we do understand. I'll just talk honestly, you know, there are not many position or not even zero position to apply. I understand. It's same for current designers too, but we're actually looking at it really positively, trying to be more optimistic and still like trying to connect together through all this, you know, Zoom meetings or whatever virtual meetings that companies using to share ideas, to share all the design thoughts. And also we still have interns working closely with us and so on. So, I personally, I remember, Mark, you asked me when we start talking about this topic a few days ago, you asked me like, hey, Kate, if you're gonna interview in the near future, students wise, will you see things differently? And remember, Mark, I said, well, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Right.
Because what we are looking for is from the students or, other potential designers. What we are looking for is the same thing before pandemic or after pandemic, because some things don't change. We're always looking for great talent. We're always looking for that flexible and open mindset.
Yep.
That's been always a key. And, some other skill sets, of course, we see as a basic tool to communicate your design ideas. But basically what we are really looking for is just those creativity that comes from, I believe, and Mark believes too, from flexibility and open mindset. I don't know if we got sidetracked or if I answer your question correctly, but
It's just interesting. Yeah, no, it's interesting to see what firms are looking for now because of what's happening. I think I'd like to talk a little bit about sort of the academic context of what we're dealing with now in schools. This abrupt switch to online learning, there's a lot of challenges and a lot of concerns. Studio instructors having to engage in an online format, it's not ideal because in a studio class where desk crits are really critical, we require a lot of lecturing on people-to-people contact. And so once it's become online, you've really gotten rid of a lot of that studio culture that really cultivates a lot of the creativity in the process. With more engagement with technology, there's always pluses and minuses with that. There's more organization that needs to happen on instructors' ends as well as students because they need to be still very organized during school. And the creative management of that is also can be difficult to manage when you're not there visually seeing the work. So oftentimes the role that I have to play, especially lately during this pandemic, is I'm a professor, I'm now a social worker, I'm now IT help, I'm a design therapist, I'm now a manager and a mentor, and all of these roles are that's a lot to take on. When you have to do it in front of a computer, it's a very, very different engagement, and the time that it takes to be involved in that. And so some of these challenges that we're dealing with are, there's a lot of equity issues with students and who has access to resources. And that's been a real problem that's been highlighted now. Who has laptops, who has design programs, who has internet. It's really about showing the inequities in society, and it's really being seen in the education program. So, there's a lot of student fatigue going on right now, and the method of learning, synchronous versus asynchronous, holding classes live versus just directly on your own learning. So that engagement may not work for everybody, especially if you're a people person. So, and that leads to a lot of anxiety, student concerns about the job market, right? So like you mentioned, not many firms are hiring at the moment, but there's an opportune time to really look at this as a way to reflect and to think
your skill set, and maybe even expand your skill set, not just those computer programs, but maybe search out there and be up to date.
Kate, to interrupt, I think you might need to reconnect with your phone.
Okay.
So Mark, we'll let you,
Yeah. Well, I think that I have some other talking points as well too that align with what Kate has just been talking about with flexibility and being informative and I think students will need to start thinking about their projects differently in regards to space planning, fixture design, and layouts. We're really going to have to thinking about scalability and allowing, you know, I guess more opportunities to think about how that would work in a space. And there's also opportunities for students to think about environmental graphics and how that incorporates into the project. Maybe seeing a sticky thing on the floor that says you can stand here can be effective, but it might not look very good. So there's also design opportunities with environmental graphics that are really key in retail, and there's challenges there to make sure that it's on brand and effective. But I think that there are some opportunities there for students to think about in their projects. And like Kate was talking about, the online presence for students it's still really important. You still have to, if you're looking for a job, you still need to have a resume, a cover letter, and a portfolio. That's probably still going to be in a digital format. So really, that shouldn't really deter you from having to, you know, work on those things and create while we're at home now, doing all that stuff. One of the things that I think about as we are moving, as retailers are also moving forward, and I think that is an opportunity in the classroom, is thinking about principles of accessibility, such as universal design, which is pretty, you know, sometimes that's already incorporated into the way that we design, and I'm sure firms have already been doing that, but I think that there's an opportunity in the classroom to really push for things like universal design to include safety as well, too. We talk about, you know, there's 7 principles of universal design. There's equitable use and making sure that everyone can use the space. There's flexibility in the use, making sure that the design accommodates for many preferences and abilities. And it has to be simple, intuitive, it has to be perceptible, and there has to be a second nature to the way that we interact spatially. There's also a way to help with tolerances for error, low physical effort, which is really important in this time of COVID, because I don't want to touch a door handle right now. So maybe an automated door is something that that's totally fine with me. And also we've got to think about space planning and the size and the space that we sort of need to engage to either shop or with people. So social distancing and circulation are pretty important in part of the design process. And for any project that a student's working on, I think that thinking about these design principles with the lens of safety is still very important. And so we already think about that in terms of ADA so that's already a part of how we design. But I think there's a holistic way that students could start thinking about their projects. And also there's an opportunity to think about the future and thinking about new technologies and using that to our advantage. VR and artificial intelligence, maybe there's a way. I mean, it could be very Black Mirror, but it really, you know, that could be scary. But I mean, it could be how we have to deal with things. And there's that online format, but there's also the virtual format that could happen for retailers. And I think students could start thinking, they could start to think about the future rather than what we're dealing with the present. I think it's a great way to start thinking about being innovative and intentional and still making it exciting. And I think that as an instructor, there's starting in the fall, I know for myself that I'm going to have to really start pushing for these innovations in the studio projects, because I think if students have these type of projects in their portfolio, that really shows that they're thinking about the future and they have some type of vision. And so that's actually really important. And hopefully employers will see that and see that vision that students have and in their projects. And I mean, this is a time, you know, we've all are going through this together. You we're dealing with a pandemic, we're dealing with financial instability, we're dealing with civil change and civic, upheaval and major changes. And, we're all being affected, and especially students and instructors. And that can be traumatic, change can be traumatic. It's pluses and minuses to that. But I think because as a designer, a young designer, as a student, as a person, you now have this experience to think about, and how does that affect you moving forward. This is a really good time to reflect and really reassess your priorities as a student, and what you want to work on. And this is it's still a good time to make a difference. It's just that our engagement is different now. We may still have to do this online presence. We may go back to the office, and we might be able to have an interview in person, with social distancing and sort of masks and things like that. So things might open up a little bit more, but I think this is, looking at this time of big change is also a way to think about it, to change the way that we think about it, more about how to be more innovative. So I think this is really about thinking about your experiences, thinking about how to design with more empathy, more equity, and more vision. And I think that's what students need to start thinking about for their project. It can't be just a beautiful project. It has to function. It has to speak to the brand, especially in retail cases. And it has to speak about vision and equity and all of that stuff. And I think students are also consumers as well. And you have your own internal experiences that you're dealing with, but putting yourself in that mindset might help you design differently in school. And hopefully the school will be able to support you in your endeavors moving forward. So that was a lot. I actually had a lot to talk about, but everything's tied together nowadays, the job market, political change, economic change, all of that's tied together, and the creative process as well. So.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Better? Good. I really agree with you, Mark, and thank you. And sorry for that technical issues. That's what's been happening during this pandemic. So be flexible, openness. But I do agree with you, Mark, because design is not just about good looking. It should be, there is a balance, as we've been mentioned earlier. It's all about understanding consumers' mindset. And as a student, as a designer, we are also consumer. So we need to really try to think about, as consumer, if I'm going to that store, if I'm going to that airport, or if I'm going onto the airplane, wherever you're designing, it should be intentional and functional, purposeful, not only about looking good. So I do agree with you. And also, it was really interesting to hear, what students can take this as an opportunity to reflect themselves and build those skill sets.
Yes.
I do want to add also, this is a time you can actually expand even further. Reach out to, build your network, because Mark and I were talking about, this is almost kind of necessary time that everyone is on this online world or digital world. Everyone's using this Zoom meeting or other virtual meetings, social media. It was maybe before, it was more young generation or some little bit 40, 50, and we thought, oh, maybe grandma, grandpa wouldn't do it. No, nowadays, everyone needs to be connected.
Yeah.
So that actually gives you students even, easier access to those people in the field.
Right.
You don't have to book the register to the big conference and buy flight ticket and buy hotel and go there to hear them or meet them. There are tons of webinars going on, and all this organization, including PAVE and others, are preparing and offering all this really good panel discussion or other speakers, this is actually good, like good time that you can go pick and select and listen to what, those leaders or famous people are thinking and talking about without paying, like, so we really think this is good opportunity. I mean, if we are thinking optimistic, to reach out to those professionals that you've been interested, or just send, some LinkedIn message asking questions. So trying to build your network, we think this is really good timing and almost kind of natural way these days.
Right, right. I think, like you mentioned, firms are still wanting to see good work, especially for young designers. That's not going to change. It's just that the method of communication might be a little different now. So you still have to be really prepared. So creating, just to reiterate this, that now is a great time to build up your skill sets. If it's learning online, or if it's really experimenting on your own with different programs, it's a good time to sort of reflect and reassess. And hopefully, you do have access to computer programs and things like that. A lot of companies like Adobe and, Enscape and a lot of these sort of SketchUp and all of these computer programs, Autodesk, they're really providing students with free access for like a year or 6 months, so that you can actually build your skill set. And schools are also offering help to students as well. And reaching out to professionals is one thing that you also have to work on, but reaching out to the school and your instructor is also a way to kind of help us help you deal with some of the equity gaps that students might not have. So access to laptops and financial aid and all of that good stuff. So I think it's just really important to sort of set yourself up to succeed, and that there are opportunities for the school and for your professional network to help you with that. And
stay connected.
Yeah, stay connected. It's really, really important. I think students kind of tune out, and we were at the end of the quarter. We're on a quarter system here at Bellevue College, but it's take care of yourself also. I think that's something that we don't talk about often, and there's a lot of stress in all of our lives right now, and it's been building up quite a bit. And like I said, this is a really great time to sort of really think about your priorities. And if getting a job is a priority out of school, well, there are going to be jobs. I mean, things will change within the next year. I know that in school, we don't really know what's happening yet. I know that several colleges are concerned about state funding. We're concerned about enrollment. Like I said, a lot of students don't want to deal with an online. We're not going to see those repercussions probably for another year on our end, on the academic side. I think that probably firms might be a little bit more nimble in that, because they still have clients that they can, you're still working on stuff, but we won't know, I think, in the academic world, the effects yet for another year. And so that's going to be interesting too, when there might not be enough students, or we might see we might see an uptick in a lot of enrollment because people have lost their jobs potentially, or they really want to reassess their life in a different way. And maybe they want to make a difference using design. And that's a great way to start, is to go back to school to make some changes. And so we might see, and typically in times of recession, education is always something that ramps up quite often. And I know that's how I got into teaching as well, because of that. And it's changed my life and hopefully others in that. But I think that, like I said, I wouldn't look at this as a negative. I really would look at the situation that we're in as a positive. And I'm sure retailers are going to look forward to design to be different. I think we're going to have to change that.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Mark, earlier, design can be really unique and creative through this period.
Yeah.
It's been always like that, especially in retail industry, retail environment has been always evolving fast, always up to date, always trying to read what consumer wants and expect. So, students on top of, like not just building your computer skill set or, it's important, but also try to see what's out there and what's going on, and try to be up to date all the time, because you don't know, because design is not just design anymore. It's all universal. So we talked about consumer mindset. We talked about digital things. We talked about, even the material changes. Is it like easy to sanitize?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And there are like VR fitting room or mirrors, all those things. Like just look up, search, and share with your colleague, thinking like what's out there and what they can help to the retail environment or other industries that you are interested in, and try to build those as your another skill set,
Right. I think that
not just the computer.
Right. And it's also, I think studio projects that address accessibility and materiality and specifications, because, we're going to have to start designing with more durable, maybe easy to clean types of materials. And once again, that's with that lens of safety. So I think students will need to kind of think about new materials potentially and using that in a different way. I think you can, there's some
smarter way.
Smarter way, safer way. And so there's some opportunity there, I think, for students.
Yeah, there are so many points that you can actually start building your skill set, not only just the drawing skill or computer skill or making things pretty. It's like we keep emphasizing, it's all about what consumer wants, what consumer expect. And you are consumers too. We are consumers too. So it's really important to be up to date, understanding the context, what's going on today, what's going on. Things are changing so fast. So we really think we can make this as a good opportunity instead of, oh, doomed and oh my God, we can make this happen together, and then hopefully, things are coming back together soon.
Yeah, and it's also hard because policy dictates how we need to interact, and it's going to be challenging, I think, in the next couple months. And it's almost like this is one big experiment, and so I
exactly.
I think that there's room for that too, So, like I said, I think that students will have to sort of start to rethink and be a little bit more innovative in the way that they approach their projects in school, and not to, use this time to really reflect and catch up. So,
and don't think, oh my God, I just graduated and I don't have a job. What should I do?
Right.
I totally understand. We all had that time, even before COVID.
Really?
It's been always like that. And you know what? Yesterday, one of our good friends and designer mentioned, hey, we've been always like that. We always try to understand and then do some design, test, and we learn, we fail, we learn. And that's what retailers do too, and what designers do too. We understand, the context and what the consumer wants. Okay, this will be good. If it fails, we learn from there, and then that makes design to evolve even further, even more. So hopefully things come back together, and then until then, you know, we can think this as a more positive opportunity. I believe.
I'm thinking that we probably need to answer any questions that people might have based on what we've been talking about. I'm not quite sure if we have any questions right now.
Yeah.
Dash?
Yeah, Mark, we got a couple questions for you guys. First one is retail and consumer behavior in parts of China and Europe seem to be returning to the same state as they were in pre-COVID. What, if any, lessons do you imagine will remain for the longer term? So what can you, I guess, see going away that's been implemented, and what can you see kind of sticking around for more of the long haul?
I think it's really great question, because we do see, you know, like in Asia and Europe, they are coming back, they're reopening. Even in Korea, it's been open for quite a while, but they have new protocols. You know, government made those new protocols to, you know, keep the distance. And I know it's sad, even the restaurant, you cannot sit together facing each other. There's a, you know, of course, the plexiglass or acrylic things, sanitizing all the time. Like we mentioned earlier, you know, we can learn from travel industry, and also we can learn from other countries, because you know, regulations and protocols, you know, those government rules are going to be different per region, you know, per country, per city. Even, you know, in we're living in downtown Seattle, but we're still kind of like quarantined. But I see other little further areas in Washington State, they're opening the patio area, and then I mean, they are doing this by phase, as you all know, and then they see, is it okay? So like we said, it's just one of the process, same as design. We're testing out. If we fail, we learn, and then we go forward, we evolve, and you know, design better. So yes, I mean, even retailers and design firms like us are studying and keeping up to date about what other countries are doing, and what's successful, what's not successful. Is there some things we can bring in and then try in US or you know, in Northwest area, or is it relevant? You know, there are so many questions or items that we are looking like to be addressed and tested before we even start.
I think that, and also to, you know, Kate, you brought up some interesting points about what's happening in Korea right now, but parts of China and Europe also have different leadership, and the way that they operate their government, and how their citizens understand and get that information, and how they choose to sort of practice safety protocols. Here in the US, we're seeing a real mixed results. Every state is different, every governor is different, all the way up to the executive level. And so some of the mixed messages that we're seeing here in the US are going to be very different than what we see in China and Europe, I think. And so that's going to be, I think that, you know, like I said, we can only do so much, and people will only do so much to follow the rules. So I think in the US, we just don't have a culture that takes masks seriously or social distancing. You know, we just don't have that here in the US. So I think that we're so used to just being free to do whatever we want to. I think that's really going to be a little difficult to change our mindset. So is there any other questions, Dash, or?
Yeah, another question, which I'm also curious to hear how you guys respond is, what will the future of pop-up experiential design look like now that most people are obviously very self-conscious and touching things
Yeah.
that a lot of other people in the public have been touching. And I've seen that in some retail that I've been at where, touchscreen ordering even at, fast food restaurants is huge. And I know they're trying to keep up wiping down after each customer, but that can probably only last so
Yes.
long. So
Yes.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I was just reading a recent article about how Starbucks is also closing stores because they don't see that sort of third home anymore, hanging out, and that's hanging out in their coffee shops. Or, a lot of people aren't willing to do that. And we're also seeing Starbucks also have these sort of more takeout situations where you just kind of pick up something and go, like a sort of a quick. And I think that we're probably going to see a lot more of that. And that's why I say the food industry is really interesting right now, because they're having to adapt very quickly and experiment, see where they can push those boundaries. But I think that the pop-up situation might need to be, it's probably going to be more centered on takeaway. And maybe,
True.
and also, I mean, right now people are just getting things delivered anyways. So we might have to go somewhere to go pick up something, or it really depends, I think.
I do want to add though, things can be also designed creatively, or smarter way. Like you saw in the video that was done like 1-2 years ago, we were still already using QR codes that you don't have to touch the screen. You can still use your mobile phone. And I do believe it will be kind of like new natural thing that you won't actually touch the screen at the pop-up shop or in the store. You might want to use your mobile phone heavily. So those things can be helpful for retailers or store design to have what other innovative ideas there, so people don't have to touch, but you can still have those in-store experience and purchasing experience. And also, I mentioned briefly earlier, there are virtual reality fitting room or mirrors or even for exercise. So how can we develop further, or how can we use that into the store environment or store design functionally or purposefully? So that will be interesting to see.
Another question. We got 2 more that we'll run through pretty quickly and we'll finish on time. Do you see any evidence of retailers in brick and mortar having the capacity or bandwidth to pivot their experiences in response to consumer expectations?
Yes, I mean, I personally didn't see the actual store in person because, as we all know, we cannot travel. But I do see, even from my colleague or other design firms, they are actually preparing to reduce capacity, and also, the circulation, the consumer journey is a little bit further away and have more depth, and even the product density can be smaller. What I'm saying is, you will still have different products, but maybe you don't have to display all different rainbow colors or all different sizes. You can still see few items there, and you can order maybe using QR code there and order right there, send to home, or ship to the store and come and then try on. But I do think there should be a way or a protocol that is like pre-sanitized and then pre-boxed. So, and maybe with a sealed sticker or something, so consumer can build that trust to that brand or to that store. Oh, I can trust this brand. Oh, this hasn't been touched, or this has been sanitized before I touch. So you can build those trust from there. There are multiple things to go over, but that's what I can answer right now. Mark, you want to add?
Yeah, I think that, I mean, obviously the retail industry is taking a big hit, and switching to online ordering is also changing the way that we engage with our products, right? I miss the time when I can try on stuff. Like I
Yeah.
want that. And it's really funny. I feel like your home is now a store in a weird way. It's our fitting room. It's where we try on stuff. It's just, it's a weird time to have to do that. I prefer going to the store to do my things, but having to adjust to use your home as a way and to get your stuff is hard for me. Yeah. Do we have any other questions, Dash?
Yeah, one more question. I know you're going to love part of this one, Mark. But first part is, thoughts on fitting rooms from a hygiene perspective.
Yeah.
Store returns, because everybody's kind of been all over the place right now. Everyone's doing something a little different. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah.
And part two to this question will also be, like stores like Sephora and Ulta, where do we see things as far as going as makeup samplings in stores down the road?
Yeah, that's the lens that I'm talking about.
Wow.
That's the lens of safety. That's what I'm hoping that designers need to start thinking about now, especially younger designers, because, there are, health hazards that we aren't aware of yet with this. And so things like makeup sampling might be pretty tough to do. And fitting rooms might be okay. It just might be a situation where they might not be close to each other. And
or fitting room can be arranged or pre-sanitized before maybe you can reserve from the phone in the store. Oh, I want to use that fitting room, and then it's maybe pre-sanitized. And there's a clear message to give the trust to the consumer. This has been cleaned or like sealed with the tape, or so you are the only first one to open that door. There are multiple ways, and also that virtual reality mirror or thing. I did see, Mark, a couple years ago, though, from one of, I think it was Global Shop. There was this booth to see your makeup virtually, and that was pretty,
I remember that.
Pretty
that was
fun. Yeah. So maybe we can use that. Yeah. But very good, interesting question. We really need to, touch everywhere. Think about every little thing for this retail design. But I do see there are options, and I'm sure there will be smarter ways or unique ways, creative ways to do what we want to do.
Brands might have brands might have smaller product that is just more like, I'm going to try it and
one time,
and I'm going to throw it away. So just a little tiny thing. Try it and you're like, and then throw it away. So we're not going to see, which will change the way that fixtures are designed, because those products are going to be a lot smaller, or maybe they're just going to be held differently. And so I think there's ways to still have that engagement, but it just it goes down to the product as well too. So that's going to change that. So are there any other questions, Dash? I know we're running up to an hour already at this point.
That's it. And just to kind of add on to that, I think we're also going to be looking at staffing and labor issues, because I was talking to somebody at the Oakley store where they're ensuring everyone that walks into the store that every pair of sunglasses you see on display has been sanitized. After you try them on, they go in a bin, then have to be re-washed before they can be put back on the shelf for somebody else to try on. So, you're going to have to add staff to, that's just a lot more that you've added to your job duties.
Yes, that's true. But it's going to be harder because there might be less people to do it. And so that's a bigger role for that worker to do all of these additional things.
I do believe, Mark, there is the part where design will play bigger roles there, because we can effectively design the fixture to make those, sanitized one here going there, like not just like, okay, throw here, throw there. No, design will play very important role during this time, I believe.
Great.
Dash is
Last one.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
How does
Okay.
the challenge presented by COVID impact design for environmental responsibility? Does one threaten the other? And that'll be our last question.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Uh-huh.
Well, we just literally just talked about one-time use things, which can be seen as very wasteful. So I understand some of the concerns there, and shipping products and relying on airplanes to ship your stuff. That's also pretty rough on the environment too, because planes aren't. They're big polluters. So yeah. Oh my gosh. I think that there's going to be, once again, this is an opportunity to rethink how we, I guess the shipping of things, the packaging of things, the materiality of some of those products. And yeah, I think we're really going to have to be a little bit more creative about how we create that.
Agree with you.
That's a
I
tough
do
one.
not have answer for that right now, like other parts that we've been touching. But yes, I do agree. We can and we will come up with ideas, better ideas for this time, this tough time.
Yeah, I think that's a great call for the industry, because even with water fountains shut down, fitness centers are handing out water bottles, plastic water bottles. We were trying to create the death of the water bottle, and now it's back.
And here we are promoting that. I know. So I think there's going to be some back and forth here, and it's going to be hard to find that balance. And I think we're going to have to call on designers to rethink packaging, to rethink how we use materials, and we're also going to have to design spaces and fixtures or things like that, especially in the retail industry, to be a bit more durable, to handle a lot of that interaction more and more. So that it's like I said, I'm not sure if it's going to be there's opportune time to experiment, and I think that we'll see in the next couple years how design has changed.
Yep. Will be fun.
We ran a little over, but I think it was a great conversation, and I appreciate both of you guys taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity and reaching to the students. So I think I know there's a lot of fear right now, and a lot of students have talked with me about that, but that's natural. But I think that we just have a good opportunity here to design with, like I said, design with more empathy, equity, and more vision, and be a little bit more innovative in the way that we're doing things, and to mimic retailers, that are also changing. So, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
Yeah, and think flexible and have open mindset. That will be the key. Well, thank you very much for all of you joining us today. Hope that was helpful a little bit. And I'd like to also thank Dash and Nikki and PAVE. Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to actually say to all of us who are sharing the messages to the world these days, please stay safe, and let's support each other.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.